Welcome to another week of The Animal Black Woman and another week of the series, My Point of View, Black Women and Racism. This week, the past interview we were with is Miss Beverly. So I'm not going to hold us. I'm going to let us jump right in and to hear her perspective as someone who has work in the city and is very knowledgeable when it comes to these issues, not only as being a part of it and a part of change, but just living life as a Black woman in Texas. So let's take a listen.
My name is Beverly Silas. Do you want to know where I'm from or where I live?
You could do where you grew up and now where you live.
Okay, I grew up in Houston, Texas. I now live in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Miss Beverly, I have an interview with her, which is amazing because Miss Beverly is amazing and I absolutely love and adore her. And I wanted to get kind of her take on her thoughts about what's happening right now. So my first question to you is, what are your initial feelings about the current state of the United States during this time?
As it relates to
The police brutality killings and stuff like that.
this is a repeat for me. It's a repeat of something that's already been done, only because the people that are doing it now were not living then. You know, it was before they were born, so they don't have the institutional knowledge that people my age have, us baby boomers have, okay? And I am a boomer. So it's like reliving it all over again. I think I hate to see it. I hate it happening, but at the same time, I understand it. I mean, I understand the reactions to the police brutality. Uh, I don't con- I don't approve of it. Never have. Never will. I wish it was a more productive way for people of color to get our sentiments and our emotions uh, and and our wishes across other than protesting. But you know, for a long time, we have been saying the same thing, and there has been no change. No, well, I won't say no change, but there has been little, if any, change in the way people of color are treated and respected. And so I can understand how the reactions have surfaced, but at the same time, I also understand why the police brutality, because uh, when the current administration came into the White House, it was like giving non-people of color the license to do whatever it was that they wanted to do. And so as a result, we're seeing that.
What do you think is the thing that needs to happen for something like this to finally get over the hump? You know, because you're saying for you, it's old news. Like, this is obviously something that's been, and anyone who's Black realizes this isn't just something that happened with these couple incidents in this last month. This is something that's been happening forever. What,
Exactly.
yeah. So what do you feel is the thing to, what do you feel is truly going to be the way to push it over the hump so we can actually see lasting change instead of temporary change or change that is just a Band-Aid?
Change is a big word, okay? And it's an involved word. Um, there has to be a lot of slow walking and sad singing on the part of a lot of people in order for change to occur. It is a very slow process, but the one thing that we know that does not change is change. You have to be willing to accept the fact that something has to change. And a lot of people don't want to do that. For some, change is fearful. They feel that whomever they are, feel that if anything changes, then they're going to lose something as opposed to gaining something. And so in the work that I do, I'm trained in a process where if something is going to change and you know that there are those who may not be receptive to it, then we focus on educating people about the change and how it may be beneficial to them. And oftentimes, when people resist something, it's not that they're totally opposed to it, although they may think they are, it's that they don't understand it. So, if you can educate them and get them to understand the issue, then they may not totally agree with it, but they're less likely to oppose it. And I feel that one of the things that's happening is um, everybody's not willing to take the time to be educated to understand just exactly what's happening. Let me give you an example of something that a girlfriend shared with me recently. She lives in California, is married, and she and her husband were out uh, at the beginning of the week when they were protesting. They just went out to see what was happening. As they were walking toward where the protesters were, there were two white women, had on uh, hoodies and masks, okay? And how they knew they were white was because of the color of their hair from out of the hoodies, and the color of their eyes. And these white ladies were spray painting BLM on the side of a building. Black Lives Matter. And so my girlfriend and her husband stopped, and my girlfriend said she questioned them, why are you doing that? You don't realize that because this is a building and you're spray painting BLM on it, who do you think others are going to think spray painted Black Lives Matter on the side of a building? And she said when she said that, they just stopped, looked at her, and then ran off. It never occurred to them that their actions would be perceived as people of color having done it.
Mm.
So that little bit of education is something that my girlfriend and her husband, put forth, and hopefully these ladies will discontinue doing that. I'm a firm believer that if you understand the issue totally, but we're moving so fast that people aren't taking the time to be educated. A lot of people aren't. And those that think they are not educated on the whole story, the whole system. When we go back and look at during the civil rights movement, we had asked uh, Hispanics, Hispanic Latinos to join us in this. And they said, nah, everything's okay, because their pigment wasn't as dark as ours, so they weren't suffering uh, the same things to the extent that we were. And so there's always been kind of an underlying tension uh, between Hispanic Latinos and African Americans. It's better now, but it's not all fully resolved. And so these are things that we understand have happened before, and these are things that are coming up now. You also have to take into consideration that all of us have been in a stressful situation, especially with the pandemic. We've been housed for 2 months. We're given incorrect information from our administration. There are things that we should have been able to be farther along with than we are now, and we're not.
So I will say for me personally, I have just felt very overwhelmed by all that's going on because there's so many especially I've been stuck to my social media, which is terrible, but I've been on my phone hearing all the influx of people and conversations and thoughts and da 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 da. For someone who feels overwhelmed by all that's going on, what advice would you give to navigate in a time like this emotionally? Why are you laughing? You're so funny.
That's funny.
Why?
What advice would I give to someone to navigate
Yes.
during a time like this?
Yes.
Pray. um, you know, um, prayer is a wonderful thing if you use it.
Yes.
You know, um, and I have been finding myself praying more uh, during these stressful times uh, than others. Okay, um, one of my Sunday school class meets twice a week. We meet on Thursday nights just to socialize, and we meet on Sunday mornings for Sunday school uh, via Zoom. And one of the things that one of the ladies asked me last Thursday is she said, why did the policeman not remove his knee from the man's neck when the man told him, when Floyd told him he couldn't breathe?
Yeah.
And I said, well, all Black people know that, or most Black people know that. It's because in their eyes, all Black people lie. So the fact that Floyd was saying, I can't breathe, to him, he was lying. It didn't make any difference, especially with the others standing around. They all think, but, and I said, don't you know all Black people lie, carry guns and knives? Okay, that's the perception. So I understood why he didn't remove his knee, and 99% of other Black people understood too. He was just, it didn't matter, okay? The fact that he had his knee on a Black man's neck and the man couldn't breathe and the man was telling him he couldn't breathe. He didn't believe him, number one. And number two, if he did believe him, it did not matter because the life of that person did not matter, okay? Once you explain that to a person of non-color, then they're doubtful as to whether or not you're telling the truth, when in actually you are, because that's their perception, okay? So when you ask me how to navigate through times like this, when you're in that kind of situation, the only thing I can say is pray. You pray for guidance. You pray for the people that are the victims. And I found myself praying for that policeman, and the others, because they need help, and they need the kind of help that only God can give them.
Mm.
So other than prayer, I don't know how to tell you to do that, and pray for guidance. I find myself now praying more for others than for me.
Mm.
And that's the only thing that I can say. Now, there are probably others that can give you other advice or guidance, but I'm at peace with me because I do pray and because I do believe and I have a strong faith.
It's so funny. It's actually very comforting and sad, but to hear that where we are, truly isn't where we haven't been before, which we know,
Yes.
but, to hear you be like, and it's funny because like my grandma definitely has a whole different temperament than I do internally. I don't, because it's not something that she hasn't experienced or been through. But for me, it's like I haven't to a certain degree. So for me, it's just like, it's a lot.
it's interesting. There are things like this that actually bring into focus to people of color, such as in your age range, that something like this really did happen before. Because when you tell people about the 4 little girls that died in the bombing of the church in Atlanta, and people that had to be escorted, Black people that had to be escorted to school by National Guard or police or whatever, they have no concept of how real that was then, or that it even happened. So for them and for you to see Floyd treated the way he was, it confirms what they heard about previously.
Mm.
Because there's a gap between roots and now.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody knew about roots, and right after the Civil War, how Blacks were treated and promised, 40 acres and a mule and all that good stuff, which never happened. Everybody heard about the Tuskegee Airmen and what they had to go through to be recognized. Everyone heard about, the syphilis program, where they used African Americans, gave them intentionally syphilis, and then when they found out that penicillin could address it, they denied them the treatment for it because they wanted to see what was going to happen. So for us that knew about all of this, that lived it, what is happening with Floyd that's why I say it's not new news. But for you guys, it's hard for you to envision that anyone would intentionally give somebody something that they knew was going to harm them and then allow them to die from it when there was treatment available and not give it to them. So this thing with Floyd is kind of like confirmation of what happened before. You don't have to agree with it, but do you understand it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's educational it is educational for you all, you Gen X's, and confirmation. But for us, it's like, okay, I'm glad there's something that you're getting excited about, even if it is this. And I regret Floyd lost his life. But at the same time, it's educational for you all. And like I said, it's confirmation that those things actually did happen.
Do you feel like the ultimate, we talked a little bit about how do you change things, do you feel like it's, I feel like a lot of people are pushing that it needs to be in our voting, in our being involved in things like budget and stuff. Do you feel like that is something people do you feel like there is a stronger way to do it? It's the best way to do it is through the protesting, or the best way to do it is through the voting and the governmental system, or just a mixture of all?
I think it takes everything.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to monitor how you do it and when you do it. Change doesn't happen overnight. And like I said, initially, there has to be a lot of slow walking and sad singing. We still have white people who are teaching their children through ignorance, some of them, and intentionally others, that Black people aren't as worthy and they aren't as valuable, which means that Black people aren't respected at the same level that others are. And even the people that say they're not prejudiced are some of the main ones that are. They just don't realize their prejudice, or they're blind. Being blind and not realizing it is the same thing.
Why do you think they can't see that? Why do you think people can't see themselves?
It's the way they were raised, and it's their environment.
Yeah.
If you grow up in a situation where everybody around you, we as people of color, we have had the opportunity to live in 2 worlds. the white world and our world.
Right.
And we can adjust accordingly. White people have always, no matter their wealth, they've always had a sense of entitlement. They don't get up in the morning wondering how many other white people they're going to see. They know they're going to see them all. They don't get up in the morning thinking about how many times will I be stopped today. They don't get up in the morning thinking about what is Sally Sue going to say today that's going to piss me off. They don't think about that because they are entitled. We, on the other hand, it's for a number of us, is constantly in the back of our minds. It may not be on the front burner, but we know that there's something out there that's going to get our attention that may not be best for us at a point in time.
Right.
I love Miss Beverly. She has so much insight, and she's not afraid to laugh at me whenever she's not feeling what I'm saying. It's not that she wasn't feeling it. She was just like, girl, you don't even know, you a baby. But if you love this episode, please share it. That's how we get the word out about the podcast. As always, you can follow us on at the IBW on Instagram. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at info@theibw.com. Also, I think I'm going to post this one. I'm working on it still, the video footage of this. So if you want to see the interview and see me looking rough, but that's okay. We're in a pandemic, so I'm going to let it fly. Other than that, yeah, I'll see you next time.